Are you ready to party? Let's go. Greg Doppmann, welcome to the podcast of round 2. Because we have a problem with our cameras, I'm so sorry, but thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the madness, dude.
Thanks for having me back.
Dude, let's get right into it, though, dude. So we've known each other for probably 15 plus years now, right?
Yeah, time flies. I'm really old now.
You're not that old, but we met, I believe it's because you were my instructor in the fire academy, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I don't know if I mean, technically, yes. I don't know if I should have been.
Why do you say it should have been?
I don't know.
Because you were dude. You were the hardest one there. You were fucking difficult.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So obviously, I was thinking about a little bit of that stuff on my drive over, right? Like,
right.
Not that we're not friends, but we're not the best. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we met as we're kind of going over right now, and then our paths have crossed a few times, and then we're kind of in the same business, so to speak. But I was like, he's gonna bring that up, right? But I was like, well, that wasn't really a problem for you. You physically and mentally seem to be pretty fine. The reason why I say I don't know if I should have been is because we were a little bit, especially at that time, as you were kind of in the beginning, we were a little bit like so off the cuff, like just like, hey, what are we gonna do today? I don't know, but we're gonna make some people hurt. Yeah,
dude. So. I just remember in that academy, I have never ran so much in my entire life in a freaking fire academy, or pulled so much hose, or hiked that much. Every morning, I would say, I think we went from 6 to 1, right? Or 2 o'clock. We didn't usually go all day. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was like 6 to around 1.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I would say 2/3 of that day was pure PT.
Oh, okay.
All the time, because it was a wildland fire academy.
Yeah,
The 67 hour.
No,
is that what that was?
It's like fed based.
Oh, okay.
Because we were training these guys to then essentially go on to Rio Hondo's Type 2 crew, which the Angeles National Forest, well, I mean anyone, but the Angeles National Forest sponsored, and so then they would activate these crews.
Okay. So this was kind of like the preliminary academy for a predominantly wildland firefighting?
Yeah, exactly. And actually at that time, I mean, it was Wildland Academy, but we were still developing the whole idea of this Wildland Academy.
Okay.
Kicked our ass.
So it's basically like you show up and you're like, what are we going to do today? We're like, let's break them off. Like, that's kind of...
I mean, that part was the given was like, okay, Howard. And at that time, those of us that were, I'll say, in charge, we ourselves only had maybe 3, probably 4 years of experience at the most.
Okay.
But a lot of it was like, well, you got to be in good shape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, more specifically to firefighting in general, I think that's kind of the aspect that, you got to be at least in a certain kind of shape. More specifically to the wildland, you got to be able to hike.
Yeah.
Hike and hike. And then when you think you can't, you got to do some more.
That's exactly how we did it.
Well, my hat's off to you guys. I had a little dabble in the wildland stuff myself early on in my career, and it is hard.
And now you're
work.
not doing it.
No, well, that's not necessarily true. Let me rephrase that. I think most agencies now have some sort of complement towards that, just because California.
Absolutely,
that's what we do.
Yeah, everybody's going. Everybody's going to jump in one way or another.
Yeah, we always tip our hats to the state and Fed guys, because you make us look horrible out there, like we don't know what we're doing.
Man, we probably do a good job making ourselves look horrible from time to time.
I think all departments, we all have our own issues and make each other look bad.
Oh yeah,
That's a freaking mess.
Oh yeah.
Well, Craig, how long have you been in the fire service now?
Started with the feds in 2001. and pretty much. And then the middle of 2006 is when I got hired with the state, and currently working now. So you do some quick math. That was 2001, and now we're in 21. That sounds weird. So about 20-ish years.
Dude, that's some time, bro.
So
that's a lot. But in that time, you've worked on hand crews. Have you done Helitack?
I have.
Was Helitack with Forest Service, or where you at now?
It was actually my first season with Cal Fire.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because I took. I was working on a crew on the Angeles National Forest for the Forest Service, and I got a call because I'd been interviewing for what we call now is Cal Fire. Back then it was CDF. It's still all the same. And accepted the job. I was literally like in the back of the buggy, like, oh yeah, I'll take that job. They're like, we need you. They're like, we need you here at this date, which was going to be like in like next week or something. And I was like,
of course.
I was like, I'd really like to extend professional courtesy and give them 2 weeks. They're like, yeah, so we need you here on this day. And I was like, oh, okay. But anyways, yeah, I went up there and, I think at that time I was probably like maybe 34, 35-ish. Feeling pretty like I'm on a crew. I feel like I'm like in pretty decent shape. So I get up there and they're like, oh, you're going to be at this station. And they have a Helitack program there. And I'm like, oh, great. And they're like, hey, come meet your chief. I'm like, cool. And I'm like, hey, chief, nice to meet you. I'm like, hey, just to let you know, I'm interested in being on the Helitack crew. It's my first, like literally like 2-3 days into my training. And he's like, hey, man. Like
slow your roll.
Like slow. He's like, we don't let first year guys on there.
Really?
And I was like, okay, but I'm here if you need me. I'm just, gonna plant that seed.
I'm sure you told him about all the experience you had, though, right? The Forest Service and all that.
I didn't really have that. I didn't really have in that conversation. I didn't really have that opportunity. Yeah. So, but I did end up. I did end up getting on the Helitack crew. So,
how long were you on the Helitack?
Just that season. Season. So, and that was up in San Benito, Monterey unit. So
that's not bad living, dude. Monterey, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, it's gotta be gorgeous.
Yes and no, because it's like it's just a geographical area. So everyone's like, oh, Monterey. Like, well, it's Monterey County. You're not necessarily in. Yeah. So I was closer to. I was in between King City and I was pretty far inland. I wasn't hanging out.
I get it. Yeah, because usually when you hear Monterey, I think of like by the beach, TV shows, school, and all that stuff.
It was none of that.
I mean, just for people listening, I know that sometimes when you hear like different types of firefighting, when you're like, oh, what's the difference really between like wildland or more specifically like with Helitack? Maybe kind of explain like what those roles are.
So real quick, just the wildland thing. Obviously, you guys know what it is, but it's a vegetation fires, right? We're specifically going out there to not necessarily protect the vegetation, but protect life and property, right? In California, we have a big problem of horrific fires. And we have what's called the urban interface, which is basically where homes and people butt up against the vegetation, where it starts to go into the forest or our open lands, and that's so then the firefighting is a little different, not like a structure fire or fire in the box. We call it sometimes,
I love when people say that.
Which I have a lot of experience at. But you could be going for the whole day, or now what has become the new norm. I hate that word. Fires go for weeks and weeks and weeks. So they always like many things. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh,
It was purely just to kind of inform people, because I think, sometimes when there's so many different facets to the fire service, right?
Right.
Whether that's the EMS component, where people will talk about like, oh, when they say like, oh, you're an EMT, but not really understanding the difference between what an EMT and a paramedic is versus if you say, like I'm a wildland firefighter, or more specifically to a firefighter, it's like, well, like you said, like you deal with urban interfaces predominantly, what you do with where you're stationed at. Right. So it's kind of just one of those things where I think it's cool to talk about, just so the person listening, if they don't really know, kind of give a little bit of background.
Right.
Because what will end up happening is we use a lot of terms, right?
Yeah,
that we're all familiar with,
And the three of us can get into like we
can nerd out on work stuff, but
like fire in a box.
I was gonna say, that was a good.
Yeah.
Statement. So. That's a good point of what you bring up. Like, I've been in it for 13 or so years,
right.
And every year it seems like the wildland part of it becomes more and longer, and it
does,
right?
Man.
Because before it seemed like, okay, there'd be a big fire. Units would go out for a week or 2 weeks maybe, or they'd hit the rotation, meaning like there's a certain amount of days we're allowed at a time.
Right.
Some agencies like 21 days, some agencies 14.
Yeah.
Right. And then it'd be like one turnaround and they're back. But like even like this last year, we had units out for a month and a half.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it's getting worse and worse, and they're getting longer and longer. And I think what's interesting with that is, you brought up using the marathon aspect, because I feel like the public probably looks at it as like, what are they doing? How come it's not going out? It's like the process of these things, once they get to that size, is so huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Nothing can happen overnight. It takes so many resources, so many people, so many extra units, helicopters, planes, all this stuff. It's pretty remarkable when you like take a step back and look at how these function.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In that regard, I actually, like most of us, we're firemen. We're, I guess, firefighter.
Whatever term you want to use, bro.
If you're offended,
hey, there's the first one.
Don't watch anymore.
If you're offended, there'll be many more.
If they're offended, they probably wouldn't have got through many of these episodes anyway.
Right, but most of us, we want to be, wet stuff on the red stuff, right? Like we want to be actually boots on the ground, fighting the fire, whether it be a structure fire, vegetation fire, or whatever the case may be. But I kind of accidentally found my way onto the other side of it, where I was not operational. I was I started going out as a PIO. I basically
that's not bad duty, dude.
Yeah, no, it's good once I figured it out. But I literally, typical, like I took these classes to try to like pad my resume kind of thing, right? And then I actually got put into the ERD, basically the system where you, as you guys know, where you might get called out for this. Yeah. And during one of the fire seasons, I'm at my station, I get a phone call, which someone else answers the phone, like, hey, phone's for you. I'm like, the phone's never for me. Like, why is the phone for me? Like, no, it's a phone for you. And it's command center, and they're like, hey, we have a fire assignment for you. We're going to send you out as a PIO, which is Public Information Officer. And I'm like, you're talking to, right? Like, what? They're like, yeah, they said it was fine. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. And of course, everyone made fun of me. Like, really, you're gonna go and talk to people because I don't like people.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, if people knew who you really were, and then they understand that you being sent as a PO, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is. So that being said, I think I've been going out as a PIO now for about 5 years.
Oh, you've been doing it for 5?
Oh,
That's
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which it was, I've been doing the basically, fighting fire either on an engine or part of a hand crew or Helitack crew. And it was kind of interesting to see some of the other sides of like all of the inner workings and what goes into all of these fires and getting all of these resources together and just the day-to-day things. So
how was your first, when you got toned out to that first fire as PIO and you had to stand in front of the cameras and give your spiel? Did it go good? Did you stutter? Were you nervous? Or were you just like, screw it, whatever?
Yes.
Yes to all of it.
All of it.
So, honestly, when I went up there, I mean, I was pretty nervous. I mean, so first there's, and this wasn't for a local fire. This was actually for a fire up in Monterey County.
What are the odds?
Up in
Right back home, baby.
Even better, it was in Carmel.
That's not
so not knowing all the inner workings of that stuff, because normally it's like, hey, load up, right? I'm not driving, like we all it's like a convoy, of your 5 engines and a strike team leader, and you go, well, this time I had to do everything, right? So I get my beak, whatever.
Right.
I do the 6-hour drive, and I got lost.
Oh no.
Of course, dude. Of course
I got lost.
I'm only laughing because it's happened to
Yeah.
me on different things. I get sent out to do something. I'm like, wait, where the fuck am I going?
Yeah.
Where am I at?
So, I mean, I was in the general vicinity, right? It gets better. I'm lost on Highway 1.
You got 2 directions.
Yeah.
North or south.
Exactly, right? Well, in that area, if you've traveled up or down Highway 1, I recommend traveling down Highway 1, not up. You start to lose cell service.
Oh yeah.
So now I'm doing
Dude,
the
so it's all compounding.
oh man, right? And you get your request, and and it'll be like, you need to be here at whatever time, right? And I'm already like way past that time, and I'm starting to like stress myself out. Like,
of course.
I can't
Of
find
course,
it.
dude.
I'm supposed to be there already.
Running out of gas, dude. The road's probably falling apart.
running out of gas. Like just everything, right?
It's a good first day. Like just everything that can't go wrong.
Yeah, I finally double back. I'm like, I gotta at least get back to cell service and civilization.
Right.
What ended up happening was I wasn't supposed to go all the way down to PCA or to Highway 1. It was the fire camp was right across from the Laguna Seca Raceway. So I just went way too far. So I get there, and I missed my time that I'm supposed to be there, and everyone's gone from what they call them the PIO shop. Okay. And they're like, oh, everyone's gone, and I'm just like trying to flag down this cheat, like, hey, I don't know what to do. Like I'm I'm a new firefighter.
Stroll in and say you did an extra hour area fam. So, you're like, I did some area familiarization just in case.
Yeah, totally. Got a good look at the fire. So
I just laugh because I've driven up Highway 1 through Big Sur with my then wife, now my ex. But we were towing a trailer. She really wanted to camp at this one spot, and I was trying to tell her, like, hey, like, I've been through here. Trust me, we don't want to pull a trailer through there. It's not going to happen. Why don't we go outside of like Big Sur somewhere we can travel in for the day? She was adamant about it. Bro, it was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I'm married. I know how that kind of stuff goes. So
I'm just like, can you just trust me? And it's like, no, I wanted, and I say this because, we love I was married at the time, but you love your wife and you're trying to like do the right thing. I'm like, all right, fine. We'll load up. We'll go. We'll do this right thing. It's not going to be bad. Dude, it was like a complete fucking nightmare. The campground we did go into, I almost couldn't get out of it. I mean, it was so, because you know how everything there is real old school, right? The older cars that were smaller at the time, and I had a 26-foot trailer, and I'm trying to pull through. A guy had to move his car. Another person had to move their like bikes and their cars. Yeah. I'm like super embarrassed, and she's just sitting there like, I can't believe this happened. I'm thinking, I told you so.
Yeah. I mean, if it got really bad, you could just call 911.
Right? That would be all right.
That would have been hilarious, though. Absolutely.
I wouldn't have called 911. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking. I would rather see that thing burn to the ground inside that campground than call 911.
Right, you show up, your arm's cut off, the thing's on fire. They're like, "You need help?" You're like, "No, I'm good. Just keep driving. Don't turn your lights off.
Yeah,
you're drawing attention." Yeah.
Well, the moral of the story is you eventually made it to where you.
I did. I made it. They set me up with. Lodging and stuff. They're like, hey, you just come back in the morning for, meet up with your group, whatever. So, started getting assignments and stuff like that. And then, that ended up turning into a really, pretty significant fire. Don't remember the name of that one, but, I kind of did the whole gamut of things of like doing interviews, doing live interviews.
Oh, live, dude. Live can be, that can be tough, dude.
Yeah, they're kind of better though. Once you start doing a few of them, but and I was paired up with someone that had a lot of experience, and so they were kind of coaching me through it and stuff, and because I was like, oh man, what are they going to ask me? And then they're like, well, you just ask them, like just ask the reporter what they're going to ask you, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. like it's not a test, and I was like, in fact, always ask like, hey, what are you going to ask me, so that you can be prepared, and not look like a dumb shit. I mean, I don't need help with that, but so you try to make it so you can be as eloquent as possible and that kind of thing. And my first few, you get a little worked up, and the recorded ones, you're like, oh man, shoot, and they're just like, yeah, just keep going, you're fine. And then like you're like, wait, I could just keep. Okay. Oh yeah, because you're just gonna cut this part out. And they're like, yeah, just keep going. Like we don't need to.
That's true, because like I told you yesterday, we were down in San Diego supporting Firefighters for Freedom and Nurses for Freedom and Freedom of Choice. We were just Jordan, I, and Sam. We were down there getting people's opinions on the mandates and all that stuff. But like when I put these videos together and edit them. When you talk to somebody, we ask them like just 2 or 3 questions. We talk to them 2 minutes max.
Right.
But I don't use the entire clip, right? Yeah. I just use like a couple short parts out of there and put it in.
Yeah, you splice it to fit your narrative.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense what you're saying.
Fit your narrative.
Yeah. We ain't got no narrative here, boy. We just want people to be heard.
Yeah. So, the first were probably pretty... a little rough, a lot of ums and uhs, and, which I probably still do. That was
I like how you segued into that.
Right, really good. And then you learn from people that are really good at it.
Yeah.
And you notice that they take their time speaking, gathering their thoughts, and they don't look as bad.
We're trying to rush.
Rush
through what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just things. Because what the is like it's almost like
you're thinking.
You're thinking, and you're like,
right.
Oh, I need to fill this space. So, which now I'm stuck doing that currently because I'm like, trying to think of what I'm supposed to say. So.
I feel like it's very rare that someone in public
speaking
or doing that kind of stuff, I think, just steps into the role successfully.
Right.
There we go. There's an see, I do I slow it down. Where was I going with that? What I was saying was I took a public speaking class.
Okay.
Like in junior college, and they make you do presentations and stuff with a large audience.
Right.
And it was really neat to see, because even if you think you're not going to be able to do it, you can learn from it. It just takes like 1 or 2 to really botch. Like you're going to go up there and you're going to say, and you're going to figure out whatever your stalling tactic is. But the people that are very good at it tend to talk slower. They tend to they use buildup of momentum of a sentence to either keep people hanging on what they're going to say.
Yes.
But I feel like in that process, they're already thinking about the next thing that they're just trying to put together to associate whatever the subject matters are talking about. It's a talent.
Oh, absolutely. That particular assignment, I got to work with. Now it's just gonna be stuck for the rest.
You're fine,
but
dude.
There's no issue.
Yeah.
Say
Yeah. Anyway,
be you, baby. You're good.
But I got to work with with PIOs that were very good. They're very good at public speaking. Just the whole gamut. They were good.
Yeah. You got me noticing it now.
Yeah. We just got to talk about something else now.
What was funny is I was kind of pre-planning what I was going to say with the whole college classes and all that stuff.
Right.
First thing I said was I was like, son of a... Why? Now because you focus on it. That's all.
That's exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah, dude. Well, you know what? Being in wildland firefighting like you and I have been, I'm actually glad that I started my career that way with you and going through that, because it's given me a healthy respect of the fire service. And this is not to, talk down on anyone who hasn't started in wildland and went straight municipal, but when you go from working for the feds and then you do Cal Fire Time or whatever, then you get hired by a city, I feel like there's just a healthier respect. You're better rounded, but you understand the hard work that goes into being a wildland firefighter, which a lot of people don't understand. Like even my family, when I was, they still don't get it.
Right.
I'll tell them like, hey, I'm on a strike team for a couple weeks, and
Right.
you know, we got formed up into a hand crew. Like, oh, well, go, that's cool. Well, did you guys have a nice place to eat and sleep? I'm just like, you guys don't get it, dude.
Oh, no.
A lot of people don't understand is that as wildland firefighters, if you're working outside of like a city department, we'll just say like LA County or Orange County, and you're working for Cal Fire or you're working for U.S. Forest Service, I mean, these are the people that are using hand tools, cutting line, putting in progressive hose lay, and that's putting in hose that's going up and down mountains to try and keep it basic for people. And you're talking thousands of feet for days on end, and then you got to hump that shit all the way out.
Right.
And a lot of times, you know, you have to spike out. Spike out meaning you're the firefighters that are protecting land and property, they're sleeping on the hill.
Right.
And eating MREs, which is meal. There's so much that I don't think the public really understands that goes into being a wildland firefighter, right?
Yeah, that's funny that you brought that up. I never really thought about it really until you just said it, as far as a perception of like people thinking like, you know, you put in thousands of feet of a hose lay and you don't just leave it there. You know what I mean? Or you might leave it there for the night, and then because it bumps over, because of different fire activity, it dictates what they're going to utilize crews for or extra fire personnel. But 3 days later, when the fire's passed and everything's cleaned up over there, you send out crews to go pick up that hose. I mean, I've spent days on end just taking out, you know, 20, 30,000 foot, you know, worth of hose.
Right.
And then you got to roll it, clean it, get it all back. I mean, the process of the wildland fires just in general is immense. And there's so many different aspects of it. I mean, it's a ton of hard work and they're long days, but I'm making it sound like it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. No, it creates work for us. And at the same time, we're providing that service to the people, and believe me, no one's out there slacking off. You know, for the most part, everyone's hustling, everyone's working hard,
and everybody has a specific job that they do. You might obviously a hand crew is out there to cut line, remove the vegetation. Mm-hmm. Engines, be it Type 3 engines or Type 1 engines, are there to lay a hose. Squirt water on the fire, but even, which we always make fun of, like a lot of the Type 1 engines or city municipal engines,
Baby Queens, baby,
get tasked with the structure defense, but that's what their assignment is. So I mean, I'd be lying to say if I haven't had some assignments of, hey, just stand by,
right?
So it happens. And
you can't make the fire come to the houses, okay?
You can.
You guys can.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
We'll protect them better.
Well,
that's very true.
I bring it up because there's times where, I'm sure you guys have seen it when we're working, and there's people who have never been to wildland, and we'll be at a station where there's AC, internet, you can go out and get food, and people are still complaining.
Yes.
I'm like, you guys, you have no idea how good we have it right now.
Right.
Like, stop.
Right.
Stop. It's not that bad.
Yeah. So, well, my dumbass last year, after not being on a hand crew for quite a while, we started a hand crew program with Cal Fire. I said started a program. It was a new program in that we're typically Cal Fire will use inmate personnel to form their hand crews. Well, because of COVID and the shortage of inmates, we got funded to start some paid hand crews, essentially, just made up of firefighters.
So when you say paid hand crews, are you talking about seasonal work or full-time people?
Both. So
wow.
Full-time overhead captains, and then your seasonals, which are classified with Cal Fire as firefighter ones. And it's a new program, something that I'm versed in, and that I used to train, people to be on hand crews. I want to be part of it. So which I knew I was accepting, like, hey, I want to work harder. I'm the oldest guy here. It'll go great. Yeah.
So is that something that when you say being approved, is that implemented for this year or going to happen next year for next season?
That happened. That started last year throughout the state.
Oh shoot!
Every unit kind of started at different times. Our unit, Riverside Unit, we didn't get started until August right in the middle of when everything was going on.
That's kind of late August, right, in the fire season?
Yeah, Riverside Unit sometimes drags its feet with certain things.
Government, babe. Well, they always drag a feet.
Plus, people don't understand. Even other, like, you guys might not even know. You'll obviously you're a little more versed since you actually worked in Riverside Unit.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much like your local. They're your LA City, LA County, OCFA caliber fire department. We have over 100 stations in the county of Riverside. That's one of Cal Fire's, not one of, that's their biggest contract. So we have a ton of Type 1 engines, we have hazmat, we have trucks, we have, everything municipal that you're used to.
Right.
So,
which is provided by the state for Riverside County, right?
The state provides the personnel, the county provides everything else. So in that case, it's the county of Riverside.
I see.
Provides everything else. So since it's such a, which we refer to it as Schedule A, I mean more of your municipal type firefighting. It's so driven by the Schedule A contract. Some of the wildland stuff we're kind of slow to get on board with because nobody wants to do wildland stuff.
Yeah, but that's like the roots and the heartbeat of Cal Fire, right? Is the wildland and brush stuff.
If you go anywhere in the state where there's Cal Fire, that's the bread and butter. That's the meat and potatoes.
Right.
We're essentially a wildland agency, but we're all risk, and so we will take on contracts. So, but the hand crew thing, we got started late. Literally, it was like, here's 2 vehicles that were once inmate. Like we had to tear them all apart, take everything out, pressure wash and decon everything.
Wow.
So when I thought like, oh, we're gonna be training, like what I'm used to, like our 2 weeks of training, we spent mostly trying to just gather equipment in the middle of fire season and do all that.
You gotta love that shit.
Yeah, it was great. And they're like, oh, the rest of the guys are on their way. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, they hired 14 brand new guys. They're going through training right now.
Oh, wow.
It was like
with no experience.
Yeah.
So
like green.
Oh, yes.
Okay, wow.
The only I'll say one of the positives about those 14 is the majority of them had just come out of a fire academy. So they were at least, they're serious about what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They were younger guys, which is easy for me to say. Everyone's younger than me. And several of them had literally, like, you would have these groups of like 3 and 4 guys that all graduated the same fire academy. So they already had some cohesion.
Okay.
Which is good, right?
Which worked out really well. But we literally were trial by fire.
Damn, dude. So you pretty much built that whole program up.
No, I mean, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
It was, but collectively, that's what we had to do. So there is, I hate saying this. There's a little bit of documentation. Discovery Channel had this, I think it's actually called Cal Fire Discovery.
Wait,
you can go through and see some of the episodes. They think there's only like 6 episodes, and it's not just of our crew. It's throughout the state.
Yeah.
But they did follow us around. For some reason, they probably for some kind of political reasons, they pulled the rest of the. There's supposed to be like another season of that Cal Fire Discovery to see, but there's some little blurbs. They covered most of the younger guys on the crew, which makes sense.
How was it? How was it having those cameras following you around? Was that kind of weird?
No, I think since I worked as a PIO,
you were
pretty comfortable with it all. And also, we would have one of our PIOs with us as well. But I think just the fact that I'm comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really a big deal to me. My thing was because there's literally maybe a handful of times where they would ride in the buggy with us. And I would just tell the dude, like, hey man, just make sure you stay out of the way. like make sure you stay out of the way because I'm not going to watch out for you.
So were they out there with you guys do it like for like with like live fire operation?
They were, and they were certed to be there. Actually, we did have a particular fire where they got in a little over their heads, and it wasn't that the fire was so extreme, just the environmental issues. It was we were out in Duluth area.
Oh shit, you guys were way out there.
Yeah, and actually we didn't know if it was in Riverside County or San Diego County. It was
quite a border right there.
And we get there, and it's like volcanic rock and stuff, and it was like maybe like one of those like 105, 108 degrees.
Ooh.
And we pull up next to the fire where the hillside is just like it just starts straight up. There's no like easing. I'm like, of course, just straight up. And the guys that were following us, cameraman, and then like another guy, they have like minimal gear. They have like a fire shelter, and they have
jacket. They're like, "Are we good?" You're like,
I mean, they have PPE. They have Nomex on and stuff, and a helmet, but they have like 2 bottles of water. When I say 2 bottles, like just your normal
little, the plastic ones.
And we got into the area. There wasn't like active fire, but the ground was so hot, and that's something that you can't really explain to people. Like the ground was so hot, I couldn't walk on it. Like,
right.
Okay.
Wait, so these camera guys that were following you on this particular incident, you had, we'll just say, your wildland boots, right? Whites or Danners or whatever it may be. But the camera crew didn't have that. They just had regular shoes or just regular hiking boots?
They had to at least, actually, no. I don't know exactly because technically they're supposed to be outfitted.
That's what I was wondering.
With the right stuff, but I don't know that. No, I think they had those. What are those other boots that are getting real popular?
Like
some Danners or something. Danners. But they had the Vibram sole.
Oh, okay,
stuff like that.
That's what I got.
But we got into a situation where the ground was just so hot, and we started to hightail it to try to find a place to not burn our feet. Mm-hmm. One of the guys made it with us. One of the other guys was already having issues, already a few hundred feet, just heat related issues. The one that went with us a little further up, we had to send him home in a helicopter.
Oh wow!
No freaking way, dude. You know what? I think it's not that it's a bummer that happened, but when you have camera crews or say a ride along, people really don't understand the work that we do. There's a lot of times with friends and family, they'll be like, "Oh, you ride on a shiny red engine or whatever, and you got a uniform on." It's like you have no clue the things that we have to do when the alarm goes off. Whether it be a brush fire or a structure or, a fire in the storm drain, swift water rescue, whatever it may be. But then you add camera people on there. It's like, God, now you got to try and worry about these people. And it's like, you're not trained. You have no idea. You're not ready, So I could see that becoming a problem where we hit, a steep slope or aspect, and then there's fire burning, the hot ash or whatever. We're used to it. We hike, we do our stuff, we train this every day. Then you add in the camera people, it's like, oh my God, now you got to worry about that.
Yeah, and they're not trained for any of that. They're just trying to tell their story through the camera.
Yeah,
and they got in way over their head. It turned into a rescue. A lot of us had to
shout out Discovery, dude.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they documented it because I think that's good for. I mean, not good for the individual, and hopefully everything's okay. You never want to see anyone get hurt.
Right.
I just think it helps build the visuals from the citizen side of it is just showing what we deal with.
Right.
And what's funny is because when you say that, you're like, oh, the ground's hot. That doesn't really do as much. It's like imagine having to go through a mile of a fire pit that had just stopped burning, right? It's hot. It's very hot. And your feet, when you say your feet burning, that's my least favorite thing as far as the wildland aspect. I can deal with the smoke. I can deal with coughing, all that stuff, because 1, it's hot. 2, it's hard to breathe. 3, it's hard to see. And most of the time, those aren't even in areas where the fire's actively burning.
Right.
And you got to mop up, clean, bump up over there. I mean, you could be working for hours.
Exactly.
So when you got a crew with you that has 2 bottles of Sparkletts water, and they got some Reeboks on, and they're, the gum of their soles are starting to stick to the ground, you're thinking, dude, you guys got to get out of here.
We done fucked up.
Yeah. No doubt. But at the end of the day, I think that also builds a little bit of respect too for what's going on out there. And just, you can't reiterate enough. It's a hard work.
Oh, absolutely.
But it has to get done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of it.
They end up taking the weekend off, and they came back. We didn't see them for a few days, and they came back very humbled and very like tail between their legs.
Good.
I was just like, hey man, you need to go fill our freezer with ice cream. So I was like, I don't really care. Like, that's cool. You figured out it's hard, but
yeah. Well, dude, what got you into public service and firefighting? You know, what kind of drew you or pulled you in this direction?
So nothing cool. Wasn't like a lifelong dream or
right.
Or nobody in my family was in the fire service or anything like that. Although like through marriage, like my uncle through marriage, his dad was actually worked for the city of Vernon, I think, for like 30 years, like a long time.
Okay.
But I was actually at a kind of a low point in my life. I just it must have been like 28 or 29, and I had a successful auto detailing business.
Okay.
That I screwed up, and I got sick of it, and just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
And then there were some family things going on with my parents, where my mom was like, "Hey, I think we might be getting a divorce or something."
Oh, damn, dude. How old were you when that?
At that time, like 28, 29, I believe.
Okay.
My mom. So I had screwed up and made some poor choices. Literally, I got burned out doing auto detailing, and I was in the business was good, but I was at this point where I needed to grow the business. And for those of you who have a business or businesses, like you get to a point where things are super good, and depending on what that business is, you're like, oh, I need to grow. But in order for that to happen, I need somebody else to do the same things that I'm doing, but without me being there. And so that became really hard. I had a pretty high-end clientele. There's also like, you have these things that you keep close to you, and like, no, only I can do that. I can't trust anyone else to do it. And so I just had a hard time growing the business. So I just burned myself out and let it go. As a result of that, I didn't have any money, and I have wasn't paying my bills and that kind of stuff. So my mom's like, hey, can you come back home? Because I think your dad's going to split, kind of thing, and whatever. And I was like, okay. And I do that. And then it was literally like, well, I'm kind of hit bottom. I'm literally living back with my parents. So I need to figure some things out. So I just started going to junior college, and somebody literally was like, hey, you should be a fireman. They have a cool schedule.
Dude.
You know, like that.
Yeah.
It's especially like back then, like that,
Right.
which was right before the 2000s started.
Yeah, you're talking about a time where there's no social media. The only networking is posting stuff up on a.
It's like
a board,
98,
right?
99.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
like you're still, to get on the internet, you're still dial up, that kind of thing.
Right.
But somebody was like, hey, and I was like, yeah, look into it. Whatever. I got nothing to lose. I'm living at home.
Yeah.
I looked into it. Took like, I think I took maybe like a building construction class. Oh, I know what it was. My uncle was like, hey, talk to my dad. But, uncle by marriage, talk to my dad. And I didn't really know him that well, but he literally was just like, yeah, just go to Rio Hondo. Because I lived closer to Mount Sac.
Okay.
But, this like 30-year veteran, he was like, just go to Rio Hondo. He's like, don't go to that fucking junk.
Yeah.
Like,
So he
how guys are with stuff.
Especially with where they went to the academies and associate everyone that you went to is the best one.
Exactly.
That's how it goes.
Right. Like Santa Ana sucks, all these like,
Oh yeah.
it's like, go to Rio Hondo, right? So, okay, that's what I did. So I took classes there, and what had happened was there was, there's Tracy Rickman who's in charge of the program, but then there's this other old man.
Oh, dude, the drill instructor?
No.
We're trying to think.
Talking about Captain Bennett.
Oh,
Captain Bennett.
yeah, dude.
And they were starting up this program, and it literally was a marketing, of course. you could fight fire this summer. Like, what?
Sweet. Yeah.
Like, I could do what? I'm like, yeah, come to this meeting and whatever and that kind of deal. And I got sucked into the wildland side of it. Again, we didn't know what we were doing.
So were you class 1 at Rio Hondo's Wildland Fire Academy?
Yes.
Damn, bro.
Actually, before we even started doing that, we just had that crew, which I think we did our minimum training with the Forest Service, and then like the following year we would just do like this refresher training. I think for 2 years we didn't have an actual like Wildland Academy. I think that started like a couple of years after that crew started, which is how myself and Bob.
Yeah, Guillermo.
Guillermo.
I just saw him the other day. I'm not gonna say.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's somewhere where I work.
But interesting.
Was my class 5? Were we like the startup to the?
So you were class 5?
I think I was 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
One of the two.
Okay.
Really early on.
You're one of the first actual Wildland academies. And again, we were really making that stuff up as we went
you could
along.
say make it up, but that was the hardest shit I have ever been. I've been through 4 academies, and that one by far was the toughest I'd ever been through. Because I remember at the end, you and Bob said, all right, for you guys to graduate, we're running a half marathon. And we had to run it in like a certain amount of time as a group.
The whole thing with that was so we did have some structure of a plan. And the whole thing was you needed to be, well, you didn't have to, but the idea was day 1, you needed to be able to run 3 miles. If you couldn't run 3 miles, you're probably going to have a hard time. And with this thing being, I think it was like 15 or 16 weeks.
That's a long time,
we had done the math and kind of, both of us were kind of already into running, me more so at that time. So we knew what it took to train for a half marathon. So that's essentially we were training you. We were already training you guys for a half marathon.
I see.
We just did some things where we kind of flip-flop because you guys had weekends off.
Yeah.
And so we made our long runs always on Mondays.
Coming off the weekend.
Yeah. Like,
that's
hey,
awesome.
if you guys were stupid on the weekend,
you're going to pay.
Partied or whatever, you know what's coming on Monday. And I think, so at that time I was probably like early 30s, and I was a dick. I was just, I mean, I still am, but.
Well, dude, you were very, very tough. I don't know. I always just thought it was because we're in a fire academy, and you guys held us accountable. You made sure that we stayed physically fit. We studied. It wasn't just the physical aspect, but it was also academics, right? 10s and 18s, and then going through S190 and all that other stuff. So I never thought you guys were dicks, but I always thought, like, God damn, these guys are fucking hard, dude. And I still remember this clear as day. Day 1, we came in, you lined all of us up. It was a huge class, and we're standing at attention. You guys are yelling, and you said, hit the deck. We're going to do 10 push-ups. It ended up being like 50. And then like halfway through, 4 people stood up to quit.
Okay.
Boom. Yeah, like we're done. And I think it.
But did Bob let them quit?
That's what I was going to say. No, Bob's like, what are you doing? And they're like, we quit. He's like, no, you don't. Get down. They jump back down, dude.
Yeah. I feel like those.
I loved it. I freaking loved it.
And then, but those things, those are so important. Those moments, right? And I think like whether or not you're one of the people who back out and end up not pursuing the fire career, but what that does is I feel like it's a very preliminary weed out process,
right?
And it's funny because I would say most people that have been on maybe let's say 5 or more years, because things I feel like in the last 5 years have changed a little bit on like what they're capable of doing training wise. I'm trying to dance around this to make it sound good, but I think that those moments though are so crucial for you as an individual getting into the fire service, because you have to know if you're capable of doing it. And look, everyone's day 1 should be horrific.
Yes.
It should be.
Yes.
You should question yourself. You should be asking yourself, is this what I want to do, while you're sitting there in the push-up position for 10 minutes, shaking, looking at people dropping down. And at the academy that I went to, like if you couldn't do the push-ups, they made you get on your back and wave your hands and legs in the air. They call it the stink bug position.
Right. Yeah.
Which, I mean, would never fly now because they're making, you're I don't want to, let's see, how do I say that? They're making you feel dumb. right? But in that process, if you can stick through it, you know, you learn so much because it's like you learn what your personal capabilities are and past that. Because everyone, I feel like, kind of has a tendency to, I'm good. I don't want to do it anymore. Now, maybe physically they do hit their peak, and for those people, maybe this isn't the career choice for you. But for the majority, even if you feel like you can't do it, when you're in that group and you have that kind of leadership, that's you know, hey, you say you're a dick, but at the end of the day, that's what it takes sometimes to get people to get to their next level. You know, so I feel like when you talk about that stuff, I went super flashback. I can remember all the situations that I've been in where a guy's like, oh, that guy's so mean and da-da-da. But you know what? Those things made me push harder and harder and harder. And that got to a point where I could do the job. And I feel confident in that. You know, and so it's like, yeah, you can say that you're a dick, but it's a purposeful, you know, because you have an expectation of what you're trying to get out of the people that you're teaching.
Absolutely. And obviously, you know, the two of you here have been through academies and been through that type of training, or multiple academies. That's the other thing you learn. Like, you're not just going to go through one academy, you're going to go through academy for everything.
A one and done thing, that's for sure.
But I've been fortunate so I know during that time, especially guys that were successful and made it through, and even some that didn't, where they had said, I couldn't stand you. Like, you're a dick and this and that and everything.
That's the point.
Right, yeah. But one of the things that happens that we've probably all experienced is towards the end of it, you kind of get over the hump, right? And everybody is like dialed in, right? From the worst guy to the best guy. Everyone just had you know, that whole push of like, hey, we're a team no matter what, right? Well, there's always somebody that's better, right? There's guys that are at the top, and there's guys that are at the bottom. So, you know, when you come in, you're just like, well, how are we all gonna like be at the same?
Yeah.
And everyone figures that out, right? And you find the pace, and you find everyone finds their step, right? And so towards the end of it, you know, where you're kind of cruising a little bit, and I think it's like that light bulb moment, which is different for everybody. But guys would be like, yeah, up until then, I hated you and I hated my life. Why were you making me do this? Which I was like, I never made you do anything. Like,
you were here on your own.
I didn't come to your house and sign you up for this course.
Right.
But, you know, and then at the end of the graduation day, they were thanking me. Hey, come and meet my family. I want to take a picture with you. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you hated me.
Yeah.
But that just goes to the process, because you're taking a group of people that have no experience, that you're teaching everything. And yeah, there's going to be outliers. There's going to be the guys that are studs. There's going to be the guys that are guys and gals that are super, you know, whether they're not getting it or they're kind of in the middle. But I like what you said, because that whole group ends up kind of learning how to work within each other. Right. So you use, well, at least in my experience, you always use the outliers, the good ones. You're like, okay, we're gonna put you in between and move you around a little bit, and we're gonna, you know, so we all move as one instead of, and that's, I mean, you could say that's life building, it's career building, it's all that stuff, but it's being able to take a scenario that you're in and being able to, you know, figure out how to put your best foot forward together as a group.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, it's like a metaphor for life, pretty much. But
yeah, it is, and I related to all that stuff very well because, and I still say it to this day, like, I'm not naturally good at anything. Like, I've had to, like, sport, like, I love sports, right? I grew up playing sports, but I was not the best player at any one position.
Yeah, same.
So, and I wasn't like a natural athlete. What I was tenacious. I was maybe not smart enough to realize some of those things were, hey, run into the wall. Okay, how many times do you want me to do this? Like, just keep doing. Right. But I was that kid that would do all those kinds of things. Yeah. So I was average. I was middle of the road. So what did I do to fit into a team environment? You have to have, you know, you have to add something, right? And I guess mine was maybe mental toughness or suffering longer than other people, because you also find out, like, people that are really good at stuff, sometimes maybe they don't like to practice. There's people that are like hugely talented, natural, God-given talent, but they don't like to practice, right? And it's like, man, you could be way better, you know, like I'm over here struggling I have to do these things in order to get better, in order to keep up.
Yeah.
I remember going through, just taking it was like a fire fitness class or something. Just like these captains would come out and just kind of pull hose and this and that. That wasn't great. In fact, at one point we went out and we were running, and I didn't used to be a runner.
Oh, really?
I didn't used to be a runner, and we were just at the track, and I came in last. And even there was other women out there. Not that I'm not talking down, but there was this whole like a little woman beat me. Well, everybody beat me. Everybody beat me. And they were like waiting for 10 minutes for me to finish this run.
Oh, shoot.
And the instructor was like, "Hey, are you okay? Like do you have asthma?" She says, "Do you have asthma?"
You're like, "No, I suck at running."
I was embarrassed and pissed off, and I said, "I don't have fucking asthma. I'm fat." Yeah. And everyone was just like,
"Oh, damn."
Like, okay.
But so I had to get better. And then the other thing was, this other instructor was like, "Hey, if you finish first, you get a longer break."
Oh, I mean, that's very true.
Which I was like, "Okay, dick." But after that, I improved.
Right.
And I think the next time I took that class, I started coming in the front. And it's like, "Oh, you figured it out, huh?"
Right.
Sometimes if you just suffer for a little while, it's kind of like, if I just push hard now, I can get up and over, and then it's easier. Versus like maybe complaining about the suck, instead of embracing it and just going with it.
Right.
So, embracing the suck. Right.
Embrace
Jocko
the suck.
Willink. Yeah.
Right.
I just that's such a when you're talking about the because I could relate with you. Like, I was never the best athlete. I love sports. I love playing sports. I like the all the parts about the camaraderie and everything. But everything for me to get good at stuff took a lot of extra time. And even the fire service was still the same.
Right.
You gotta. I was definitely. So I totally know how you feel.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like my attribute wasn't like strength or quickness. It was like willingness to endure. You know what I mean? But you know what? I think that's important though. And that's something that especially being in a leadership role or, whether it's for training or whatnot, being able to key in on that with certain people. And, it's like, look, hey, you're not getting it right away, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And it just means instead of doing it 10 times, you got to do it 100 times.
Right.
But doing it that 100 times, now all of a sudden you're really good at it. So it's just like with anything you do, whether with life or whether it's, for this career or not, it's just keeping moving forward and trying because eventually you're going to get it. I would say if you put in 110%, it's very rare that you're going to fail in this profession.
Right. For the moment. Yeah, I agree with that. So, it's kind of funny. So this career choice, whatever, I'm one of those, my wife gets mad at me all the time. She's like, "Oh, I can never do this or that or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, that's because you're too smart to do those things." She's like, "No, I could never do." I'm like, "Monkeys can do this job." And she gets irritated with me. She's like, "No, it's a certain aspect." I'm just like, "No, like literally you can train anybody." Well, I usually start with, you can do anything that you train yourself to do. Because she'll be like, "Oh, why is that person good?" I go, "It's like the reason you're so good at your job because that's what you do. You're a professional at it."
Right.
So I don't think I've ever really wanted a lot of credit for this, although there's definitely probably people that will argue, because there were some guys that I worked with, they had this like running joke of like, every story that I tell, you end up being the hero.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But I guess that it's just those things that you don't realize about yourself.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm like, don't want that credit. I don't want that. And usually I'm just like a role player in everything anyways, which most of us are in the fire service.
Like just everything I'm involved with seems to work. I don't know what to say.
There's truly, no. But you know what I mean? Like there's really no one that's like, "Oh, I did that," unless you're a paramedic, and then it's like, "Oh, I'm probably surrounded by two."
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
It's the little motivators that you got to give yourself to keep going. No.
Yeah. So, but you know what I mean? Like we all, you show up. We'll just say a fire, right? You show up to a structure fire, like everybody did their part.
Right.
including the IC. You know, everybody does their part, and hopefully we get it wrapped up in like 20 minutes and take off.
Well, you bring up a lot of good points, dude. I think I would say, I know that starting from Wildland Academy at 18 to going through the college to the few departments that I've worked for, there's things that those academies instill in you that you'll never get anywhere else, right? It's just like when the military, they go to boot camp, right?
Right.
I mean, you're right. Everyone comes in as individuals, but by the time you finish, you graduate kind of as one. You understand what it takes to be in public service, that it's not you on your own. You have to do it with a team. There's no freaking way I'm going to show up on an engine by myself and run a full arrest or put, a fire out or run a progressive hose lay up a mountain, right? It takes a team. It takes people who care about being in shape, who care about putting their turnouts on time and getting out the door fast, who care about knowing their paramedic protocols, right? Who care about the teamwork and understanding about checking on your buddy. And I feel like a lot of that is being lost nowadays because of politics, unfortunately. You go to, not to get too crazy deep in it, but I have seen a change, at least in college academies and, paid full-time, where it's like, people are now, the recruits are complaining, hey, like, you're being too hard on us. And then overhead comes down, hey, you guys got to ease up. You're like, wait a minute here. Wait. In real life, when a call comes in, you don't get a fucking timeout or, hey, this is too hard. You have to perform. Right. You have to do what the task entails you to do, in which you brought up another good point, suffering. I think I will say straight up, the academy that you were my instructor being Wildland, it taught me to suffer. I fucking hated going there every day. It was like Groundhog's Day. But it taught me so much about teamwork and suffering, in which I still use to this day. It's like, I tell everyone when they come to the academy, we're teaching, like, you have to learn to endure suffering and work in uncomfortable conditions, because that's what every call we're going to do. You're not going to be wearing a nice, cool uniform and riding in a red, shiny engine and go to this, oh, hey, you want to ride it? No. When someone's calling you on your worst day, you need to perform. Straight up. And I feel like, unfortunately, that toughness in academies and trying to teach those certain ways, like how we learned back when we went through academy, is definitely being lost because of politics, which should not be involved in fire service. And you guys can see it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Looking back at some of it, I understand, especially being in some aspect during like your Wildland Academy, being kind of the person that was in charge of, I guess, dishing out the sufferer or whatever.
Suck,
but
dude.
But looking back at some of it, like I just recently turned 50 back in August, and there's different things that are important to me, and I still look at all the value of those kinds of things, of like pushing people to their limits, because there's a couple things with that. Like if you're new, like if you probably both work with your new boot, right? And so you want to know what this person's limits are so that you can read those signs. Also, you want to know what their limits are so that they can learn what they are and hopefully start to push past them. Because what you think your limits are, and I've heard you talk about this on one of your other podcasts. What I think your dad had told you or something about. You guys were talking about like whatever you think your limits are, you still have more.
Oh yeah.
Before you get put into those situations, you don't know that. You don't know that. So I understand the value of it. I do think that there is some maybe more positive ways, or not. That's not the best word. Other ways to go about doing that without just making everything just miserable all the time. So and that's why I said it earlier in the podcast was like, I don't know if I should have been doing some of those things.
Yeah.
So I look back now, I guess I could think they call that wisdom. I think
absolutely.
Maybe you start to look back, like, maybe.
Well, you live and you learn, right? It's a journey.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is what it is. But I tell you what, there's still a handful of us that was back in 2005. There's still a handful of us that keep in contact.
Wow.
It's really cool. It's kind of cool, those bonds that you make with people.
Right.
I still talk to you. I still talk to Guillermo. And those are good moments when you're going through. You're like, God, I hate this. But it's like kind of like you said, as time goes on and you learn, you get to your career, you look back, you're like, dang, dude, that sucked. But it's really cool, those bonds and that brotherhood and sisterhood you kind of make with people,
Absolutely.
for as much as we didn't know what we were doing at that time, there also were some specific things because we had even though in our limited experience, we had some very good experiences early on when the first year of the Roadrunner Fire Crew, I got the opportunity to fill in with a hotshot crew, which is like in the Forest Service, like that's like the truck company or something.
Yeah,
I mean, like, oh my God, it's like the elite, right?
Yep.
Like that kind of thing. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I literally got a phone call one morning of like, hey, we need an extra body. You want to fill in? And I was like, wiping the sleep out of my eye. I was like,
okay.
Yeah, like, yes, sir. When do you want me to come? How quickly can you be here? And I was like,
oh, damn.
Oh, like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
We'll be waiting. And I was like, oh, crap. What did I should have said an hour. And I get there and talk about being the new guy and all that kind of stuff. They literally were throwing stuff at me. Like, here, pack this, do that, get in there. They didn't talk to me for hours. We literally just started driving up north. So, but my point with that is I got the opportunity to work with this what's coveted as a very elite crew.
Yeah.
So I got some really good experiences, which that 2 weeks didn't go great. Like I had some moments where I was okay, but a lot of it was just super difficult. And some of it was just like mental. And they were making it hard on me on purpose, but those are the kinds of things you do.
Yeah.
So we knew when we were putting the Wildland Fire Academy together, we need to make it physically hard, but we need to make it mentally hard. Do you remember where we ran most of our miles?
You know what? I remember us running out the street down the cul-de-sac, but then also through the neighborhoods. That's what I remember.
So it's interesting. We have a Wildland Fire Academy in the middle of an industrial area, so we make do with what we want. And a lot of times I was in charge of the runs, especially the long runs. Yeah. And you're right. We used to go through the neighborhoods because Bob preferred to go through the neighborhoods. I preferred to run up and down the cul-de-sac.
The cul-de-sac was like a death march.
Yeah.
It wasn't physically hard. I mean, yes, it was physically hard. We built up to it, but the mental aspect.
It was horrible.
Of going back and forth.
The scenery sucked.
It was terrible.
We would, how often would we run past the academy? Remember I used to do that, like where we'd run in the driveway, run around the building, and then just go right back out the other side.
Yes. Everybody out.
No,
like,
Jordan,
we're almost done.
Jordan, dude, guys would honestly be like, you could hear we were running. Guys would be like, no fucking way, we're going back out again. He would run us in. You think, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
And he'd come loop back out and we're right back out in the street. And you're just like, fuck.
I'd even play the little games of like, we're almost there, yeah. Like try to pump everybody up.
Push, and then
and we always we ran in cadence, like
cadence.
in cadence,
like
in cadence. So we're doing the chants and all that stuff, and I'd run them in and literally run them right back out on the street. And we literally the cul-de-sac running down to the cul-de-sac and back was 1.5 miles.
Oh man,
there was the most we did. I know. That I know we did 10 miles on the cul-de-sac.
For one run.
For one run, just the same scenery. It's an industrial cul-de-sac. If you know
Jesus
where
Christ.
Mentally and physically taxing, no doubt.
Yeah, just horrible.
Dude, it was definitely a mental game. I remember that distinctly, dude, because you could hear just the life being sucked out of everyone, dude. Because you're like, dude, we're like 7 miles in. And we're coming in. We're gonna finish up stretch, and then run right back out. But it makes sense. It makes sense the mental part of it.
Right.
But dude, the last thing I want to talk to you about, because we kind of had a good conversation about this at the barber shop. But we all have some time on here, and you've definitely grown through your career. But what's your thoughts on mental health for firefighters and first responders? From because when we first get on, it's like charge, right? Go, go, go.
Right.
We don't, don't talk about your feelings,
right,
or whatever. It's not manly. But now, as time goes on, it's kind of less taboo now.
Yes.
So I'm kind of like, what's your feel on that? At least where you work and just overall the things you've been through.
So I was pretty typical of what you just said. You do all these things, and even just before I even got into the fire service, because I started right around when I was 30.
Yeah.
Was like, typical, not in touch with my feelings, if people were experiencing something, oh, that's great. They're like, oh, I need to go talk to somebody about this. I'm like, oh, cool. And that's probably good for you.
Yeah.
Pretty much just went about my life in that same fashion, not really not even really acknowledging that I'm having feelings about something or whatever. But recently, I mentioned that I started going out on PIO assignments, which they're not physically taxing, but it's day in and day out of the same thing. Typically, like with Cal Fire, we do a 24-hour on the ship, like on the fire. Normally, if you're out actually fighting the fire, you do 24 hours on, and then you do 24 hours off. But if you have an overhead assignment, you work 12s and you work every day. So it's just
with Cal Fire, if you have an overhead assignment, you're
which most any overhead assignment, whether you're Cal Fire or Forest Service or local government.
Okay, because I was always under the impression when we go with Cal Fire, it's always 24, day on, day off, and in feds it's 12 hours. But if you're on,
if you're part of the overhead assignment,
okay,
you're going to work every single day, 12-hour shifts for the most part.
Okay, wait a minute. So if you're out for 14 days assignment, you're there 14 days straight, 12-hour shifts.
Yes. Yes. So it becomes more of a mental thing.
Oh yeah.
And so what had happened was, as I was going on more and more PIO assignments, I started to notice, again, I'm not physically fighting the fire, but I started to notice that I was ending up on a lot of these tragedy fires where we're having line of duty deaths. So, which is not to say that it's different, not to say that when you have civilian deaths that it's not important, because that has a big impact as well. But it is different when you hear that there's been a death on the fire line, on the fire that you're working.
Yeah.
So I think even more so when you're actually on the fire line, it's just, it's a small community, and you're like, man, I wonder if I know who that person is, because there's a good chance you do, or in most cases there's a good chance you don't. But so it's like, okay. One of the things about PIO is we help facilitate a lot of those things, and once something like that's happened, whether it be facilitate a memorial or help deal with just whatever comes along afterwards. Once we've identified that a firefighter has died because of the fire. Yeah. So I started looking back. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was on the car fire. There was, a death there. I was on, actually I was on the campfire. We didn't have any line of duty deaths, but we had significant civilian deaths, almost upwards of 100.
Oh, wow.
So I just started looking back at these things of like, I've been involved, and sometimes you're the one that's slated. You have to go to the memorial or have to, just to represent the department, or you're helping plan it or whatever it was. And so just all these things, and I think as I'm getting older, I'm getting like more in touch with my feelings and stuff. And so there's just this different things that are happening with me. And then last year, being on the hand crew, one of the things that happened was we ended up being I went to work one day. It was actually the day before my birthday, or no, it was my birthday. And so I just needed to work that shift, because we were only just doing like I'm gonna say like 12-hour shifts, and then I was able to go home, and then I was gonna literally go on days off.
Oh, wow.
Well, of course that didn't happen, and we ended up working like 2.5 months straight.
Oh my God!
Like,
dude.
just like
2.5 freaking months.
2.5 months straight, which is a normal thing for Cal Fire during fire season.
Yeah.
But so we didn't go out on any campaign fires, but we were on every initial attack. So again, new program, and there's different hurdles every day. Sometimes not anyone's fault, but just developing a new program. And I just there's things, if I saw like some new guy getting unnecessarily like reprimanded or be given like a hard day, it started to bug me. And dealing with my own probably emotions and stuff like that. I just was like, man, why am I being affected by some of this stuff so much, because I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
One day I had a guy, he ended up working at the station as overtime, actually forced overtime. But one thing that was interesting was it literally, he had just been promoted. And like, it was one of those, like, he goes, yeah, I woke up this morning and I was a captain now. He was an engineer and like now he's like, but I didn't get to go home. Like, I just had to go to the service center and pick up my red hat and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So he comes over to the station. He's like, man, it's good to see you. And it's someone that I used to work with when he was a medic at the station that I worked at up in Anza. So I'd worked with him throughout the years. And I started talking to him. He's like, how you been? This and that. And then all of a sudden I started talking to him. And then all of a sudden, like, I just like was overcome with emotion. And he's like, hey, like, he's like, let's come and talk,
Yeah.
So, and it just so happens he's actually part of our peer support.
Oh, good.
group.
You guys do have that program.
Yeah,
Awesome.
part of our peer support group with Cal Fire.
Good.
And so obviously I was comfortable talking to him, and then he was knowledgeable with that. We ended up talking, our dumbasses stayed outside. It was like 110. I don't know. We just got caught up in this,
sweating your ass off.
sweating,
Yeah.
and me crying like a baby. But it just was like, man, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, hey, like it's okay. Like this is actually good. He shared with me some things that happened with him, kind of the same kind of things where he was realizing all the things that he's seen and done throughout his career has affected him emotionally.
Yeah.
And he needed to seek out help.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which is the conversation that you and I briefly got into of it's becoming now acceptable and encouraged now to, not by everybody, and I'm sure every department is different, but I'm going to counseling. Because there was a need for it. I've actually only gone once. And I was supposed to go a second time, but I got COVID.
Oh, you got the Rona, bro.
Yeah, I got the Rona. And so I had to cancel and did all that stuff. So I'm actually just rescheduled to go to another counseling session.
Well, dude, I think it's important to go to counseling or therapist. I have a therapist I see once a week. Shout out, Matt. My man, dude. I even text him all the time. Just stupid, funny shit. Oh, no. But, no, I think it's important. And I remember having that conversation with you, and I was, we see each other in passing all the time.
Right.
But it was really cool to have you open up to me and just talk for that short 10 minutes because I seen the effect that this career has had on my life. And to be honest with myself, I could see it in my previous marriage where I was very shut down, wasn't emotionally available. And it's because you go through all this stuff at work, right? You're seeing people unfortunately die. You're called everyone's worst moment. You're fighting these fires. You're trying to figure all this stuff out and help people. But yeah, I remember thinking, I'm helping others, but I couldn't help myself. I remember it was such a crushing feeling. It was weird. And I think it's important that we talk. The first responders talk to somebody and seek help. Having a therapist is a good thing. It's a very good thing. You bounce stuff off of them because you're not made to see all this violence all the time. And it will build up and it will come out somewhere. If it doesn't come out at work, it'll come out at home. It'll come out in friendships.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to always tell first responders, like, protect your family, protect your private life and your personal life. That should be your number one, not your job. Meaning, talk to somebody, man. Don't take that shit home. It's not worth it. It's not worth going through a divorce. It's not worth, suffering in a relationship. Because I hate to say it, but once we're gone and retired, this job continues on. They're going to fill that seat with another ass and a cheaper fucking employee number, dude. So, and it's not to sound like a dick, because I'm sure our departments, whatever, appreciate us being there. But at the end of the day, it's the brotherhood and sisterhood. We have to take care of each other. You got to talk. Like, what you did with that captain is huge. I've done it with Jordan.
Right.
There was a time Jordan and I think we're both still medics. And we both were rolling into some shit. And we were in the medic dorm both fucking talking and crying.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, dude, fuck. You're trying to figure out life and all this shit going on, but you still have these expectations at work. It's just madness, dude. So I commend you for coming on here and talking about that and being open, because I think more of our brothers and sisters and just the general public need to hear that. They need to understand that it's important to speak up. If you need help, speak up. There's nothing that. It's not about being weak anymore, or you're a sissy, or we hear all the time you're a pussy, right? No,
Right.
Speak up and talk, man.
Right.
It's because unfortunately, what a lot of people don't know, the suicide rate for firefighters is extremely high now, and I believe it's the number one killer above heart attack and cancer. I think it was last year. I don't want to quote me on that, but
it
was sad, dude. It bummed me out.
I think you're right, because I think it used to be heart attacks, and then now it's unfortunately suicide. Yeah, mental health. Yeah. I think when you and I had talked about it, I think I don't think I had set up an appointment yet. I think I told you I was looking into that route. And since then, I don't know if this was before or after, but I had something, of course, it's a wildland fire, but go to this fire, it's not going well. And because the fire season, we had limited resources on the initial attack. Yeah. And me and my partner, we're putting in the hose light, and it was one of those, like, we're really close to like hooking this fire. Mm-hmm. I thought we could maybe, but we just didn't have the resources, and fire goes up and over a ridge and down into the flats and starts burning homes.
Oh, damn.
And I've been on fires, that's not in a good way, but I mean, I've seen that happen before. Like, unfortunately, those are the things that happen. Yeah. We had a lull. We didn't have a lull. We ran out of hose. So there was nothing else we could do. So I'm taking a break, and I kind of walked over to the side, and I started crying. Yeah. Wow. It was the first time I've been on a fire. Again, not like, oh, been there, done that, but I've seen homes get destroyed. I've seen, unfortunately, lives being lost, but it was the first time that I felt directly like it was my fault.
Like responsible for
yeah, exactly.
The aftermath.
Like, and so I actually ended up sharing that because we have a lot of new guys. I ended up sharing that with some guys later on that I probably never would have done that a few years ago. Yeah, they're on your career. Where I told them, like, yeah, I felt so bad. Like, I went off and cried, and they were just like, oh, wow, Yeah. They're like, so I guess as you get older, you're a little more with some things open-minded and
things change, right? I mean, you have time and experience on now. You're married, homes, and you move on, age. I tell people all the time, dude, your mentality about careers in your career, I should say, it's like, for me, I told someone, like, if I don't fight another fire, I honestly don't care. I don't need to go on another fire at all in my career, and I'm good, right? Because I know about the cancer rate, carcinogens, and the things that we're exposed to, and how it's extremely dangerous. And I don't want to work, I want to get another fire. You're wishing for someone's worst day of their life, dude. Yeah. And something could happen, So just as you get time on, things just change.
Absolutely.
I think it's the perspective too, right? Is as you when you're new in the career, you're very much like gung ho. Anything happens, and there's a little bit of merit that comes with that, right? So gaining the experience, seeing the wacky calls, seeing the the carnage, if you will.
Right.
But the good thing, I think, is at least for myself with the career development stuff, is that the peer support process is getting more like, it's not as taboo. And I think that, because like, look, when you experience something crazy, and we've talked about this on the show before, part of the decompressing is talking with your crew about it. Right. But sometimes that isn't enough. And depending on what you see and how much experience you have over a period of time, you might need some professional help, if you will. And what's cool is that that's becoming more and more out there, and the accessibility of it is, it's not like, we're talking about it right now. Like, you go probably 10, 15 years ago, this conversation wouldn't happen, at least publicly, to be able to talk about it, because you want to maintain a certain image or thinking that it doesn't bother you, right?
Right, exactly.
Tough guy, if you will, right? Yeah. So it's good to see that part of that healing part, because look, no one can sustain or endure a 30-year career of seeing crazy stuff and pretend like nothing affects them. Whether it's at home in your relationships, whether it's just how you treat other people, or honestly how you conduct yourself at work. Because that process does need to happen for all of us. So whatever that is, whether it's not every one of us has like the best scenario crew where you can just talk to everybody and open up and get all emotional and stuff, because there's still some of that feel out process at work, depending on who you're working with.
Oh, absolutely.
So having the ability
of which we're losing now, because people don't really have that camaraderie that we once did, right? And everyone just goes into their room and does whatever.
Everyone goes and hides out. Yeah, it's like, hey, are we gonna try to watch a movie or do something? Yeah, but I think that doing this, being on here, talking about it, for those first responders that do watch this, or anyone who's new to it, or that knows a first responder, just know that look, we all deal with stuff just like everybody else, and sometimes just being able to have that conversation and open up is the first step to getting mentally healthy. So thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, you guys have gone through those things. I know most of our conversation has been heavy on the wildland things, and I probably put in a few jabs about paramedics, but you guys have seen a lot of stuff. With that, I've actually worked very, very closely with a lot of medics, some really good ones, because of my, I never wanted to be involved in the EMS aspect. We're all EMTs because that's what we have to be, right? Even I think probably most
you have
to at least be an EMT. That being said, in Riverside Unit, because it's not just a wildland agency or whatever, a lot of times we're assisting the medics. So I'm actually glad that I got really good. At least I had at one point running all those calls, and you talked about we talked about with our crew the bad. I don't know if bad is the right word, but what's the go-to is it's the gallows humor thing, right? Like It's always like, oh yeah, but sometimes to an extent it's almost like just trying to fit in with, like, we just start shooting off that, and it sometimes doesn't really do anything for you.
I think it definitely everyone's perception of that is different, right? And I think early on, the gallows humor is a good way to put it, because that's kind of the norm. I think that's like the if you're brand new to something and you're exposed to a crazy call, let's say multiple people die or whatever the case is, just picture a horrible scenario.
Right.
If you've never been exposed to that, it's really tough to just kind of we walk away, you get back on the rig, and you're like, that was crazy. But then someone's, hey, did you see how that person was laying, or did you see how this was? You know what I mean? And you're still trying to break down what just happened. And sometimes, I think that it does work for a lot of people. But there are people that doesn't work for either, which again kind of plays into the peer support and actually talking to somebody, be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this.
Yeah, and there's also I know when I first actually went through this story, the first full arrest that I ever went on was walking in, and I was just like, oh my God. We were like the second engine in. It came across as just like a chest pain, so just the one engine went. And then next thing you know, our tones go out, and we're like, shoot, they must have. And we get in there, so they're already working this guy up, and he's like this. He was almost 400 pounds. So they're literally
that's a lot of work, dude.
Yeah. And I walk in, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, somebody should call somebody. Like that's what I'm going through. And then I was like,
oh shit, I'm not
there. Oh man,
yeah.
And they're just like, hey, jump in there,
damn, what do we do, bro?
To now, again, not that it's okay that happens, but now it's just like, shoot, we killed another one. Yeah, let's go get dinner.
Yeah.
So
people will never. People just don't understand that. We'll go from a fire or someone passing away from us to boom. Now let's go get dinner, guys.
Right.
It's just different.
Yeah.
Dude,
exactly.
Well, dude, Craig, we got to wrap this up, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being so open and just being real, dude. This is what this podcast is about. It's just celebrating a normal person, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad about our friendship. We met a long time ago, man.
Yeah, man.
Still fucking keep this shit going.
Still good to run into you.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, man.
Love it.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for opening up and talking about the. I know we. The mental health stuff. I don't want it ever to sound redundant on here because it's so important. And obviously, you got time in on the career. You have a ton of experience, and it's kind of interesting when we talk about those parts where it's like, we're getting soft, but then there's aspects to what used to think was soft is important, meaning the mental health side. We're still having to navigate. You still need to press people on the learning part and new, and because you're teaching, right? Essentially. And I think it was a interesting conversation as far as that dynamic between the two. And, it's people like you in those leadership roles, that help impress these new people coming in. And, the experiencing that you gain, and this is for everybody listening and, for your own career, take what you learn and impress that on the people, especially the newer ones that are coming in, because that's how you make this better.
Absolutely.
And, thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome finally getting to meet you. And
thank you. I'm actually now comfortable with
how I look to how I sound.
With looking at, not that you're like, it just was weird.
Yeah, face for radio.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it just was weird. I'm like,
yeah.
this guy's a person. It's not just a voice.
Yeah,
so,
dude.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Let's go on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's
go.
Bye, everybody. And that's it. Thank you for listening in, everybody. I'd like to thank our sound engineer who makes this podcast happen and makes us sound very good, Stephen Clark. And to our first sponsor, 89 Barbers. Look good, feel good, be great. Come get your haircut at 2 locations, Long Beach and in Orange, California. Your appointment can be booked at 89barbers.com. That is EIGHTNINE BARBRERS. 89barbers.com. Again, look good, feel good, be great. Check it out. It's my barber. He is the man. Thanks, everybody. Bye.